Mr. Brown is not your child's biological father.
But I didn't have sex with nobody else. He the only person I had sex with.
I'm 5'3", Keisha's 5'7", Marquisha's 6'1". You know, her father has to be tall.
You just believe because you are not that tall and Marquisia is so tall, there's no way. And you get yourself, that's what I don't like about all this little social media stuff. You post something and then everybody, yeah, girl, yeah, this and all this, yeah. And they will, yeah, you straight to mediocrity.
Let's just say all high school sweethearts aren't meant to be your happily ever after partner, and this case will show you exactly why. Ms. Hawthorne, looking as angry as a hungry lion, was in the courtroom to prove that her sweet-talking high school deadbeat got her pregnant over 3 years ago and refused to step up as the biological father of the child and is now denying her and the baby. Mr. Brown, who was the sweetheart in question, claimed Ms. Hawthorne was a desperate liar who would say anything and other to have a family with him.
Ms. Hawthorne, you are here today because you say your high school sweetheart, Mr. Brown, is a smooth-talking deadbeat who got you pregnant 3 years ago and is now denying your baby. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Hawthorne's specific words in describing Mr. Brown were that he was nothing other than a deadbeat. She was furious that he hadn't done anything for her and the baby since she gave birth to the child. It was more upsetting for her because Ms. Hawthorne grew up without a father and she didn't want her child to have the same fate. But Mr. Brown was firm on his decision that the baby could not be his, and all she wanted to do was pin it on him.
And do anything for Chase. He doesn't come see him, anything.
And that makes you so angry.
Yes.
Because you feel like he's not honoring his responsibility.
Right. And plus, I grew up without a father. So to grow up how I did.
And so, Mr. Brown, Ms. Hawthorne says you acting like a deadbeat. Why?
Your Honor, this baby isn't mine. I desperately believe that she's emotionally attached to me.
Well, Mr. Brown wasn't really selling his story to the judge. He just claimed Ms. Hawthorne was desperate to have a family with him, but that wasn't really the case. Ms. Hawthorne told the judge that they had been high school sweethearts for as long as she could remember. She even went on to say that he was the very first person she ever had a sexual experience with. Their issues started when Mr. Brown started to cheat with another woman while they were dating.
Relationship, we were high school sweethearts. You know, I was all about him and everything. Everything was good until he started cheating.
So this was your high school sweetheart?
Yes, I lost my virginity.
And you say everything was going fine?
Yes, until he started cheating on me.
You started cheating, Mr. Brown?
Well, Your Honor.
Now, their relationship didn't particularly kick off with the beautiful romantic setting you'd expect. Their relationship started over the internet, and they weren't particularly seeing each other regularly because they were in 2 different cities. It took them about a year before they could even start seeing each other, because at the time they were still very young.
Oh, so you all met online.
Online, right. And
but
so
it was during when you were in high school.
Right, and so we were dating online, but it actually took a year after we started seeing each other because we were young, we didn't have transportation.
So you met online, you lived in 2 different places.
Yeah.
And you all were going back and forth
yeah.
until you figured out how to meet up.
Yeah.
Their cute high school relationship didn't really go on for that long. Everyone grew up and they both went their separate ways. But here is where things get really exciting between Mr. Brown and Ms. Hawthorne. A couple of years later, they reconnect to catch up and talk about how things have been since they split up. That's where the magic happened. One thing leads to another, and they both find themselves having sex in the backseat.
You all reconnect, or did you get back together? What happened?
So I was pretty much leaving my significant other. I was coming over to talk to Bria about us not seeing each other anymore. So we was in the car and we ended up getting into a heated moment, and both of us started kissing and ended up having sex in the backseat.
Mr. Brown was starting to get on the nerves of the judge. While he and Ms. Hawthorne reunited and were having their little makeup session, Ms. Hawthorne told him that she wasn't on birth control, and there was a high chance that she could get pregnant if they continued. In Mr. Brown's defense, claimed that after she told him that, he didn't finish the act. After he dropped that truth bomb, he went on to throw another one where he claimed before he came to see Ms. Hawthorne, he had sex with his girlfriend at the time.
She wasn't on birth control, so why would I proceed
But you were the only person I was with, so I don't...
So you say you didn't complete the act, and so therefore you can't be Chase's biological father?
Correct, because before I came to her, I had sex with my girlfriend.
What? Okay.
You had sex with your girlfriend before you came to see Ms. Hawthorne?
Correct, Your Honor.
Mr. Brown claimed Ms. Hawthorne put him in a shady situation by allowing him to have sex with her while she knew she was on birth control. But the judge stopped right there because she was pissed to her bone. She knew for a fact that Mr. Brown was telling a lot of lies. I mean, first, he had sex with his girlfriend before coming to see Ms. Hawthorne, then went on to have sex with Ms. Hawthorne, knowing she wasn't on birth control. It sure looks like he was the shady one to me.
You say it's a shady situation.
Correct.
But you, the #1 shade tree, because you had sex with your girlfriend, then came there and had sex with Ms. Hawthorne. She told you she wasn't on birth control. You did it anyway, because you didn't have no self-control, and you weren't prepared, and you was over there having your cake, eating it too, baking another one, and getting the ingredients for a third. I know how this works.
Well, the moment we've all been waiting for is here, and the truth is about to be revealed, people. It's been one tricky ride here, but all that suspense is about to be over. Could the high school sweetheart be the father of her baby? Well, let's find out, and I hope you guys are ready, because I am.
Mr. Brown, you are not the father.
Is that a joke?
No.
Oh, boy.
The DNA does not lie,
Oh, my
and it
God.
does not joke. Mr. Brown is not your child's biological father.
At the end of this case, you'd be left asking why she took so long to bring it up. Ms. Jenkins appeared in court to prove that her college sweetheart happens to be the father of her already grown daughter. It's been over 23 years since her sexual encounter with her then boyfriend, and now she is ready to say the truth. Mr. Crockett, the college sweetheart in the mix, claimed. Back when they were in college, Ms. Jenkins was intimate with a lot of men, so there was no way he could be the father.
Ms. Jenkins, you say after 23 years, you are here to finally prove to your college sweetheart that he is your daughter, Marquisa's biological father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Crockett, you say Ms. Jenkins was having sex with several men while you were in college, and you are positive you are not her daughter's father. Is that correct?
Yes.
Judge Lauren asked her why it took a whole 23 years before she decided to come forward with her claims. Her answer was quite funny. She said she and Mr. Crockett just reconnected, and back in college they were the best of sweethearts, so he had to be the father of her child because she was the only one she was intimate with at the time. But Mr. Crockett didn't believe any of that.
Well, recently me and Corey just reconnected, and we were dating back in college, so he has to be the possible father.
You all dated back in college.
Yes, Your Honor.
And now you believe 23 years later that he is your daughter's biological father?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so, Mr. Crockett, you don't believe that?
No, Your Honor.
Why?
Because she's not my child, you know.
Ms. Jenkins' story was starting to take a different turn, and this time it was hard to tell if she was actually telling the truth. This time around, she was saying that Mr. Crockett was not the only guy she was sleeping with. First, she had a boyfriend before she met Mr. Crockett, and while they were together, she was with another man.
So in 1993, me and Corey had met in band camp. Mind you, I had a boyfriend back at home, but of course we had an instant attraction, and then I was also messing with a guy from my church.
Oh,
But-
so you were in college?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said there were 3?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were messing with Mr. Crockett?
Yes,
and
Your Honor.
who else? The guy from high school?
Yes,
That
Your
was
Honor.
back at home? And somebody at church?
Yes, Your Honor.
As you would expect, Mr. Crockett had no idea she was dealing with this amount of men at the same time. He remembered the situation from a different perspective. They were both in the band back in high school and things pretty much kicked off from there. But one thing was certain though, it all started as a sexual relationship.
No, I didn't.
How do you remember this relationship?
We was both in band. You know, I played the drums, she played the clarinet. She did a little flag twirling, and then one of my friends came and told me she liked me. So we kind of hooked up from then on, and we was having sex, and just went from there.
Now things were going pretty well between them at the time until Ms. Jenkins fell really ill. She had no clue as to what was going on with her body. Curious as a cat, she went to the hospital to find out what was going on. The doctor gave her the shock of her life. She found out she was already 4 months pregnant.
I found out I was 4 months pregnant.
4 months.
4 months. And I didn't tell nobody because I was scared because I knew I had been sleeping with several guys. I was terrified to tell my mom. Came down to where I had no choice but to tell her.
Who did you tell her the father was of the baby? Your mother?
My high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And I really didn't have to tell her. She just assumed because that's who they knew I was with.
Now here's the news flash. Mr. Crockett never got to know that Ms. Jenkins was pregnant. She never told anyone about the baby, except her mother, and her mother automatically believed the baby was for Mr. Crockett since she knew they were high school sweethearts at the time. Having no clue as to who the father was, she played a trick on Mr. Crockett to try to determine if he was the father.
You never told him you were pregnant?
Never. I never told him.
She called me up one day, Your Honor, and told me to come pick her up, and I went and picked her up, and we hung out, and we had sex, you know, and when she put her clothes back on, she reached in her back pocket and pulled this picture out and was like, "Do you think this baby's yours?" And I was like, "No." Then I showed my grandmother.
Ms. Jenkins finally has her baby, but Mr. Crockett isn't around to be there for her. I mean, it's not like he knew the child was his anyway. She informed his parents about the child, and they didn't hesitate to accept the baby. But deep down in Ms. Jenkins's mind, she knew what she was doing was beyond wrong.
Family, you know, his parents accepted it, but me, I knew because I knew what I was doing. And so I felt like, I was like, this can't be. And then, so I mentioned it to the other guy from my church, and I informed him, I said, you know, this may be your baby. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, well, you know, you've been there, so hey, it's a possibility that this may be your baby.
All this while, her daughter has known her father to be Ms. Jenkins' high school sweetheart. But now, the story was about to change. Her mother never for once mentioned that there was a possibility that another man could possibly be her father. Ms. Jenkins was playing a really dangerous game, and it was about to hit her in the face. It was about time Judge Lauren heard from Ms. Jenkins' daughter.
Your high school sweetheart is her biological father.
Yes, Your
She's
Honor.
never been told anything different.
Never.
And now you're here to prove that, in fact, the high school sweetheart is not her biological father, but Mr. Crockett is.
Yes, Your Honor.
I think it's time to hear from Marquisa. I want to know what she has to say. Jerome?
Now, Ms. Jenkins' daughter walked into the courtroom, and you could see that her heart had been shattered by the whole situation. She was only told a week before she appeared in court that there was a high chance the man she believed to be her father could actually not be her real dad.
Just now, like recently, probably like a week before we came, I just found out that he wasn't the father.
Ms. Jenkins, you just told your daughter 1 week ago
I just told her.
that the man she believed was her biological father for 23 years really was not?
Yes, Your Honor.
And how did you determine that?
I had him tested when she was 13. Like I said, I wanted child support.
Her daughter started to talk about how she never had a father-daughter kind of relationship with the man she initially thought was her father. She claimed she could not understand why he was never fully present in her life. She tried to build a relationship with him, but it just didn't feel as if they were not meant to be.
Really have a father-daughter relationship because he was in and out of my life. Like, he was never consistently there. When him and my mom got back together when I was about 11 or 12, then at that point we started to kind of build a relationship, and in between then we experienced Hurricane Katrina together. He was there for me. He taught me like a lot of stuff during that time. But then after that, him and my mom broke up.
There was no point beating around the bush. The only thing that could set the record straight in the courtroom was the DNA results. It all boiled down to one question. Is Mr. Crockett the real father?
Mr. Crockett, you are not the father. You are not the father, sir. Marquisa, are you okay, hon? I know you were hoping for the closure today.
Yeah.
You've been very strong.
These high school sweethearts were for sure not having it with each other anymore, bouncing from cheating to pathological liars, and now there's a baby involved. You can bet there's a lot of drama circled around these guys. I'm sure you're already buckled in, so let's get the show on the road.
Ms. Shands, you appear in court today because you are devastated that your first love and the person you lost your virginity to is now denying your 15-month-old son, Aiden. You say once you prove to the defendant that he is the father, you hope you two can finally be a family. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Shands was determined to prove to the court that high school love was the biological father of her baby. Mr. Hollis, who happened to be the boyfriend in question, believed there was no way on earth he could have fathered her child. It was a classic case of kids making babies. But Mr. Hollis wasn't going to make it easy.
Today, I would like to accomplish that Amir is the father of my child. He has been in my baby life ever since my baby has been 3 months. He's my first love, my first kiss, my first everything. And today, I just want to know the truth about. I want to prove to him that he is the father of my child.
Now, the love story between Mr. Hollis and Ms. Shands started when they were in middle school. Things seemed pretty sweet back then, but things took a twisted turn when he found out she was messing around with some of his friends.
After middle school, when we hit high school, everything was going straight, like her freshman year. But after that, when we had got into that one argument, we broke up, and then that was that. And she started messing with my homeboy, and she started messing with multiple people.
Your Honor, Me and his was close friends once before.
They was, but they used
She used to come back and tell me that Mr. Amir, he was messing with one of my friends.
Mr. Hollis was no saint either. He was also messing about with some of her friends. Ms. Shan said they weren't so smart at the time and didn't really know what they were doing because they were young. Well, Judge Lauren slammed her straight up, and trust me, she wasn't nice.
But I thought it was cool to go mess with one of his friends because he have slept with one of mine. We both had made a mistake.
No.
We both made
No,
a mistake.
that's not how it is.
There's no other
That's not how it is.
All right.
This is really what went on. All of them would be at my house every weekend. His friend, that's the other guy that she messed around with, and they would be there all the time.
In no time, the courtroom turned into a kids' assembly with both Mr. Hollis and Ms. Shands chattering, "No, I didn't sleep with your best friend. No, he was my best friend. No, he wasn't your best friend." Judge Lauren was boiling like she was made of lava.
This is
told him.
exactly why you all need to be just out playing a sport, learning a craft. This just sounds about silly. So you have revenge sex
a
with
whole
one of
lot.
his friends. And did you use protection?
No,
And then how many times did you have sex with this friend of his?
multiple times.
Now Ms. Shands finds out she's pregnant. Ain't no surprise there, if we are being honest. She picks up her phone and beeps Mr. Hollis's friend to tell him she is pregnant. Surprising thing, he's pretty excited about the baby. But here's the plot twist. She also tells Mr. Hollis she's pregnant too. Now that just starts to make a mess of everything.
Well, he was happy. He was happy.
And so you also tell Mr. Hollis?
I told him like not as soon as I got pregnant. He ended up finding out on the street. But I ended up telling him.
found out by
I ended up
myself.
telling him. I ended up telling him. And I guess he ended up telling his mom as well. And I was telling them that it's a possibility that it can be him or the friend. I never told the friend that it can be a possibility with another guy. I only told his mother that it can be a possibility with another guy.
Fast forward to when the baby is born. Mr. Hollis is nowhere to be found. Not at the hospital, not anywhere. Guess who shows up to be with her in the hospital? The best friend is the one who plays the father role in the hospital. Mr. Hollis says he didn't even know she was pregnant or she went into labor. When he found out she wouldn't let him be around her,
I mean, when Aiden was born.
In the hospital.
In the hospital. In labor.
In labor.
And I sent my mom there because I knew there was a possibility that my son could be the dad as well. He favored my son when he was born.
So wait, and so Mr. Hollis, you just didn't want to be there or you felt like you weren't invited?
I wasn't never invited. Like, anything I ever found out about the baby, I found out by myself. Like,
Judge Lauren couldn't hide her irritation from these kids anymore. It was turning into a reality show for kids, and the judge was not gonna have any of that in her courtroom. Things just kept going from bad to worse.
No, he didn't have his ID at the time. That's why he didn't
He
sign.
wasn't intending on signing.
At what point do you just say, you know what, I don't think you're the father, I think Mr. Hollis is my child's father? Do you ever have that conversation? Do you ever just come clean?
With the friend?
Yes.
No, I never even talked to him about it.
After all the back and forth of kids giving birth to kids, the moment of truth is finally here. It's time we draw the curtains on these kids' funny behaviors and find out the truth. Take a seat back and focus your eyes on the judge.
Mr. Hollis, you are not the father. I see tears in your eyes, Ms. Shan, because I know how desperately you wanted Mr. Hollis to be Aiden's biological father.
This was one funny high school sweetheart experience. Mr. Hammond was present in court desperate to get a DNA result. He was trying to clear his name from the mess Ms. James had created. Apparently, she went on to open a child support case claiming he was the father of her baby. Ms. James, with all her heart, believed Mr. James was the father of her child.
And you are here in court desperate for DNA results. You say the defendant went behind your back and opened a child support case claiming you are the father of her 4-month-old daughter, Nyasia. You're hoping today's results will prove you are not the biological father before the child support order goes into effect. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Out of the blues one morning, Mr. Hammond received some papers stating that he had to pay for a child support bill. As you would expect, he was beyond confused as to why he was getting such a document when he knew he wasn't the father of anyone's child. There was no second-guessing his thoughts. He decided he was going to get a DNA test.
For the child listed above.
Right.
Okay. And so when you got that paperwork, what were you thinking?
I'm like, man, I need a DNA test, straight up.
So, Mr. Hammond, take me to the nature of your relationship. How did you all meet?
Okay, I dated her for a couple years. I moved away for like 4, and during that time, I had a relationship with Miss Kiera.
It was truth-spilling time, and the judge was curious as to how their relationship started. He went on to drop one of those mind-blowing truth bombs where he claimed to have a back-and-forth relationship with Ms. James and his girlfriend. Trust me, it was one messy situation between all of them because the two women knew he was sleeping with them.
That's when I reconnected with Miss James.
So you were doing a back and forth, but at some point ended up dating both of these women at the same time.
Like I said, you know.
Like I said.
Both of them knew. Well, she didn't know.
He actually said that he's keeping her under, he didn't want her to know because he was just getting money from her.
Ms. James remembered the situation in a totally different way. She didn't deny the fact that she knew he was sleeping with another woman, though. What she frowned at was the fact that he was always asking him for money, and she wasn't ready to take care of a grown man. At least that's how she put it.
Actually, when he told me he was gonna get money from her, I said, go ahead, I'm not gonna give you my money. You need to find a job or something. I'm not gonna take care of a grown man. She could do it, I'm not gonna do it.
But you were still having sex with him.
We were. He was always at my house.
He was always at your house?
Yeah, he was.
So right before Nyjah was conceived, you all weren't in a real relationship.
No.
But you were having sex.
Right, at that time, she got pregnant in March.
Here is where the whole situation gets really messy. When they were having their 3-in-1 relationship, Ms. James and Mr. Hammond's girlfriend got pregnant for him at the same time. It was as if Mr. Hammond got himself into a situation he never saw coming.
While this young woman was pregnant with your child,
right, and
you were still having sex with Ms. James.
Yeah, of course. That's why I said. Well, we all know that because they're, you know, kind of close. So that's why I say, of course, because it's close. But what I'm saying is, you know, let's get back on topic. She called me and told me that she was pregnant, right?
Both parties had some mega secrets they wanted to reveal. Mr. Hammond was saying that when he found out Ms. James was pregnant, she told him that she didn't want him to be part of the baby's life. Ms. James, however, remembered the situation very differently. She said he wanted to be part of the baby's life and even apologized to her for getting his girlfriend pregnant.
We met, I was at work and we had met and sat down and he was telling me how he's so sorry that he did it or whatever. He shouldn't have got her pregnant. This is the truth. And he was just telling me like he messed up and he's like, I have a plan or something, I guess, to take, I don't know.
Hold on 1 second.
Right.
Stop whispering things over to your girlfriend. Let's stay on topic.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, let's be on top.
The truth just gets coming and coming and coming. After Ms. James dropped that truth bomb in the courtroom, she went on to drop another one. She claimed while she was pregnant with Mr. Hammond's baby, she had sex 3 times with another guy.
She texted him and then a family member called me and was like, are you sure, you know, that's his baby? And I was like, no, I'm not sure because I honestly had sex with another man earlier that day.
Earlier the what?
That day, and he knew it. It was on my birthday, actually.
Yeah.
And we had sex 3 times. When I spent the night at his house, went to work from his house the next day.
Whose house?
It was how a battle of trying to determine the conception date of her child. When they did the maths, things were just not adding up in the courtroom, and it was a question of who was lying and who was telling the truth.
When you went to the doctor for your checkup, they gave you a conception date of August 6th, which was the actual day you had sex with 2 different men.
Right.
So if you did, and there is another man that you had sex with, how are you so certain it's Mr. Hammond's baby? It's really now, we at a 50-50 split right now.
He's old, really old. So I think that his chances of like having kids.
Judge Lauren had seen enough of the lies and disloyalty that had been going on in Mr. Jones and Ms. Turner's relationship. It's finally time to reveal the truth and clear the doubts that were flying about in the courtroom. Who do you think the father of the child is?
Mr. Hammond, you are not the father.
That's fine.
You are not the father.
I'm just glad we just got it out the way.
All right, now that we have the truth, we always talk about in this courtroom, we get one level of truth and then we seek a next level of truth. I said it before I opened the envelope and I know it to be true. This isn't over between the 2 of you.